Hi, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. My name is Rochelle Scouten. I'm the Development Director here at the National Bicycle Dealers Association. We really appreciate having you here with us for this really important topic discussion that we're going to have today. I have Dan and Benji here with me from UL. And they are going to tell us more about UL 2849. And we are really grateful to have them here. So I'm just going to pass it over. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Rochelle. Welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope there's nobody that is in the time zone that's evening. So welcome to this webinar. This is the third webinar in a series. Today we'll be talking about the UL 2849. We are not going to go into technical details. This is not, we don't have time for that. This is not a medium for that. We'll explain why 2849 is very important. We'll explain some technical requirements. Hopefully you'll understand better what needs to be done, and you'll pursue the certification to UL 2849. Benjamin?
All right, and what we'll do in the sharing, I've tried to put the screen share up. Is it available for you now, Dayon?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So
yes, it is.
I'll let you proceed, sir.
Well, again, welcome everybody. This is again Dejan Gakovic. I'm UL's Micromobility Business Development Manager. I've been with UL for about 18 years now. I served as a staff engineering manager before I moved to a more commercial role. Benji, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Benji Cribb. I am out of the Research Triangle Park office in North Carolina, if you couldn't tell from the accent already. I've been at UL over 23 years now, and I serve as the micromobility technical lead for the US.
Excellent. Thank you. We can advance to the next slide. Many of you guys may be asking, why are we here? Obviously, declining cost of lithium-ion batteries, increased commuter congestion. A lot of cities are trying to build more sustainable, smart cities. Couple that with the COVID pandemic and the increased demand for bicycles and e-bikes brought us where we are here. We are projecting, and Forbes is projecting, that e-bike market will grow across US, Europe, and China, possibly to $500 billion by 2030. That is an unprecedented growth, and we have to address certain hazards associated with lithium-ion batteries and consumer products and e-bikes. So that's why we are here, and that's why we have developed the UL 2849. So why you should consider certification? We understand that you guys are dealers, you are not manufacturers of products, although I believe we do have some manufacturers on this call. Why you should consider certification? For a few reasons. New micromobility companies are launching weekly. They have no history in product safety. In your retail facilities, you might be selling e-bikes from manufacturers that did not exist a few years ago. Venture capitalists are funding micromobility market and startups almost daily, and those startups have very little knowledge of explosion and fire hazards. Another reason why would be that USA fire code marshals and first responders are adding UL 2849 to their respective fire codes and demanding product safety certifications. And we'll talk a little bit later about it, why. Also, you will reduce risk and liability from e-bike incidents if the bikes are certified. As we all know, we have all shopped recently, we have all received either notebooks or mobile devices in mail through either various couriers. And you can see that each box is marked with a dangerous good marks and big letters that say contains a lithium-ion battery on the packaging. So lithium-ion battery operated products are definitely dangerous goods by its nature. A safety certification can definitely lower your liability as a dealer, as a retailer. It will improve the quality of the product. You will become a demand driver for higher quality of any e-bikes manufactured on the market. There's factory surveillance, ongoing factory surveillance for e-bike manufacturers, which in essence drives the quality. And most importantly, consumer safety equals the consumer confidence, and which drives, again, dealer sales. We want you to be successful. We want to sell as many e-bikes. We are not here to hinder your progress. We are here to actually help you be more successful. That is the whole reason behind UL 2849. But prior to that, I just want to say that UL's mission is working for the safer world. That is our only mission. We want to have a safer world for us, for our children, and for the generations to come. How do we reduce risk against fire and explosions? In the previous webinars, you have heard from the Deputy Chief of the New York City Fire Department about their experiences in 2021. So far, in 2022, there are 75 fires in New York City alone. There were fatalities in those 75 fires, and they are on track to surpass the 104 fires in 2021. So there is significant risk involved with these devices, with these e-bikes. We know that Vancouver, British Columbia has recently experienced the wave of e-bike related fires and explosions. We also know that if it's happening in New York City, it's happening across the United States in all big cities, except that New York City is really good at documenting it. So there is a huge potential for hazardous events. We know they're happening. So that is why it's extremely important to have certified e-bikes on the market. Next slide, please. Many of you will ask, what types of e-bikes are we certifying? If we certify e-bikes, any electrically assisted bikes, electric bikes, as they call them in the market. Typically, they're single rider use. They could be equipped to carry passengers. You typically sit when you operate on them. They're not pushed e-bikes. They're not those scooters. They may or may not have pedals to operate. So these are the bikes that fall under the scope of UL 2849. So bike with or without pedals, you have to sit on it. Single rider, it could be cargo use, but it also needs to have a 2 or 3 wheels. Next slide, please. So for many of you, UL 2849 may be a new standard. However, we started working on it almost 9 years ago. The first edition of the outline was issued July 1st, 2013. And just a few days ago, the revision 1 of the standard was published. So June 17, 2022, almost 9 years after the first publication, we have a first edition revision 1 published. So this is not something that we came out with yesterday. This is something that's been in development for almost exactly 9 years. Next slide, please. So UL 2849 is a ANSI standard. It's a standard for electrical system for bikes. Again, as I said, originally published in January 2nd, 2020, first revision, and was published on June 17, 2022. It covers electrical bicycles and tricycles, both pedelec and non-pedelec types. It only covers electrical system, not roadworthiness. System consists of battery pack, motor controller, motor, and or user interface, lighting circuits, and accessories. At this point, I would like to transfer the presentation to Benjamin. He is, or Benji as he likes to call himself. He's a technical expert, and he'll talk about the major components in an e-bike system. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Benji.
Deon. Sure, thank you, Deon. The major components that we want to look at are, again, there are a lot of components there, but the major ones are what we're going to really focus on to begin with. And what we want to do in this presentation is to give you an understanding as a dealer what the e-bike system or the e-bike itself actually went through to obtain a certification. So if you will just humor me as we go through, I'm sure there may be some questions, and we're going to look at it from a very high level. But the major components, there's typically 5 critical things that we're really looking at: the battery charger, the battery pack, the battery management system, the motor, and the integrated motor controller, or even possibly a separate motor controller. So if we look at the battery chargers to begin with, these battery chargers, there's specific requirements that a battery charger used in an e-bike system must meet specific standards associated with that charger. It could be UL 1310, UL 1012, ULCSA 62368-1, and in the past it could have been 60950, but 60950 is now an obsolete standard. So the chargers are part and parcel of the system evaluation. So when you receive or you get in an e-bike and you're looking at it, Mike Fritz has mentioned several times in this series to make sure that you're paying attention to what comes with it, that it is part of that system, because the charger, the battery pack, they all work together as a complete and entire system. For the battery packs themselves, UL 2849 says you have 4 options. Option A and B are UL 2580 and UL 2271 evaluations of the battery packs themselves. Or you could have a UL 62133-2 pack, or 2054 could be used. However, if you're using the option C and D, there is an extensive list of additional tests that must be conducted when you're going through the 2849 evaluation. And those tests are equivalent to the testing that would have been conducted if the battery pack was subjected to UL 2271 for light electric vehicles. So again, you can see the test names on the screen and you kind of get a sense of what type of testing would be required for that battery pack to be used in an e-bike system. Now, one critical thing in 2849 that may not be readily apparent whenever you receive an e-bike system, but in the battery and the battery pack, everyone has a brain, and the brain is called the battery management system. That battery management system really is crucial. And again, I'm mentioning Mike again, but Mike has already told us in this series some of the things that that battery management system has to control. Things like the cell imbalance, over voltage, under voltage, over current, over temperature, charge, discharge rates. All these things are being managed inside of that battery management system. And we have to look at the functional safety aspects of this. UL 2849 says that you must evaluate functional safety, not only the hardware, but also the software. And there are many different functional safety standards that can be used to address it. And on the slide, it shows several of the options that are available, but the standard also has ways that if a manufacturer has an equivalent functional safety standard that they've used, it's possible that it could still be part and parcel of UL 2849. But the simple terms, we're just checking that the circuitry and the software will keep that battery in a safe state while it's being charged and while it's being discharged during normal use, and also in the event of reasonably foreseeable single faults. The next portion, or the next major component, is the motor. In UL 2849, there is a list of standards, and it's the UL 1004 series that can be used to evaluate the motors. However, in 2849, a motor is not required to be evaluated to the UL 1004 series unless it's in a hazardous voltage circuit. The most common approach is that these motors for the e-bikes are actually not in a hazardous voltage circuit, so they're evaluated as part of the overall system itself. And one of the the final major component that we want to talk about is the motor controller. And this screen is very similar to what we talked about with the battery management system. So again, multiple paths of compliance for the hardware and the software. Again, this motor controller could be integral inside of the chassis or inside of the frame of the motor. It could be an externally mounted motor controller that actually situates itself between the battery. Then you've got the motor controller, then you've got the motor. So it could be integral or it could be separate. But we still have to look at the functional safety aspects. Does this motor controller prevent something like a situation where you've got a running overload or a locked rotor condition, or is it actually limiting the speed of the device to what the manufacturer states? Is it maintaining the temperatures, or is it helping to maintain correct temperatures inside of the motor itself? Is it limiting the current? Is it limiting the speed for walk assist mode? So there's a lot of functions that occur inside of the motor controller that must be considered when the UL 2849 evaluation is being conducted. So again, we're trying to keep this at a very high level, and I'm not going to read everything that's on this screen, but I would like for you to think about the UL 2849 standard as a guide on how a safe electric bike or electric bike system has been built. So it's not just a formula for testing. That's where a misnomer often occurs with a product safety standard, that it's just a list of tests that need to be ran. In fact, it's looking at the system as many different components that are being merged and married together, and those individual components that are outside the scope of what I've already defined as major components, these smaller components have to also be confirmed that they have the reliability needed to meet the minimum requirements in the standard. So just again, some examples are plastic materials, polymeric materials that are used. They're to be used outside on these construction. So do they have the correct mechanical strength properties? Do they have the correct fire rating to contain a fire should one happen? Do they have the properties that they're able to withstand the elements in which they're in, the UV rays that are actually emitted onto them? So do they have a UV protection, or do they have some form of mechanical strength? Ingress protection in the overall design. The mounting requirements. So you've got an electrical system that has 4 different parts that need to be mounted to the e-bike. If they're mounted and then you run through the testing program, do those components stay securely fixed to the device itself, or is a hazardous situation created because the mounting requirements were not adequately addressed? Again, some of these things you can read on screen. Again, there's requirements for the user interface or the HMI, and there's grounding and bonding requirements depending on the type of system. Again, you have to look at the actual conductors that are used in the frame, through the frame, to the motor, to the battery. You have to look at the mating connectors between conductors. Are they in a hazardous voltage circuit? Are they in a low voltage circuit? And once you've looked at all the different smaller components that make up the system, then we have to address the marking and the labeling requirements. So what marks and labels are on this product? What's the stated speed? Who made it? What's the model number? And what do the user instructions actually say? And do they meet what the standard requires? Are there installation requirements that are needed if you're making a system to be integrated by a frame designer? Are there operation requirements? You must operate between 0 degrees and 40 degrees Celsius, or do they have a broader range? Is it supposed to be in use at 2,000 meters or higher? What are the maintenance requirements to ensure that this system over its life stays in compliance with 2849? And finally, the standard addresses moving and storage requirements. So as the standard looks at, from, I hate to say it, but from birth to death of the product, how was it designed? Did it meet these construction requirements? And again, this is an extremely high level overview of what the standard would mandate for the minimum level of acceptability for a UL 2849 product. The next thing, once we've went through all of the construction features, then we would typically look at the test program. Now, the test program that I've laid on the screen now for you for reference, this is assuming that all of those components that I've previously mentioned have the correct certification for those components. So this is what we would call a typical straightforward test program. And several of these tests that are mentioned on screen would be repeated multiple times in different configurations of the device. So if you have a configuration of an e-bike where it can be set to a maximum speed of, let's just say, 15 miles an hour, and then you have another maximum speed or another setting that's 20 miles per hour, you may be repeating several of the tests on this list multiple times. So again, we would look at the temperature at the maximum intended ambient operation for it. We would look at the different polymeric materials, the impact test. If there is an impact, which would simulate a e-bike falling or dropping, is that going to create a hazardous situation? Do the polymeric materials that are used in forming certain parts of the e-bike, if they have mold stresses that release over time based on increased heat in that area, does it create a hazardous situation, or is it a robust enough design that there is no stresses that would cause issues? Again, ingress protection, looking at where water can come in contact with various components. Is it safe or is it not safe? Is it allowed by the standard or not? I mentioned earlier the vibration test. You actually have fully assembled e-bikes that are placed on large vibration tables, and there are different vibration parameters in different directions and axes that we try to determine, okay, is this vibration going to prove that, let's just say the battery happens to fall off? Would that create a situation that would cause someone or go against what the standard allows? So again, just a typical test program for you to reference and what you're looking for. So in summary, for what I would like you to take away as a dealer is, when you receive an e-bike and that e-bike has a UL certification to UL 2849, there is a level of rigor that has been completed on that product. Looking at all of the components that make up the system, looking at the construction of even what we would consider minuscule components sometimes, down to the printed wiring boards that are used, the conductors that are used, the connectors, and all of the other material parts that are married together to make this system. It meets the construction requirements, and then it meets the testing parameter requirements. And once that has been done, then a certification can be issued. And when that certification is issued, Dayon mentioned it earlier, the certification means that there's going to be an inspection that is occurring at the factory that is making these e-bikes. So it's not just one sample tested and complied. It's after the certification's been issued, it's surveillance in the factories where the products are made to ensure that what is being made today was the exact same thing that was tested and defined in that certification report. So I hope that gives you a general understanding of what the process looks like and some of the items that need to be considered. It's not just testing, it's the construction and the testing. And now I'll hand it back to Dayon.
Thank you, Benji. I just want to stress out again that all the test program that Benji has outlined, it is only related to the electrical system. It's not for roadworthiness of the e-bike. It's only for electric system. Just it's important to stress that's only for the electrical system. Now, national requirements for e-bikes are defined in a 15 US Code of Federal Regulation, which specifically cover e-bikes. And e-bikes based on this code are defined as a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour and with a maximum motor power of 750 watts. We put in 1 horsepower in a parenthesis because we are so used to measuring power in horsepower, but again, it's a 750 watt. So does not, UL 2849 does not define the maximum speed. Maximum speed, as Benji mentioned a few times, is evaluated based on manufacturer's stated maximum speed. And that is where we are a little bit different than the code. Higher US regulated speed allows various jurisdiction requirements. We know that some of the countries outside the United States, obviously Australia and a few other countries, are actually debating of using UL 2849 as their national standard. So for example, Australia requires 25 miles an hour maximum speed. But again, unique applications where higher speeds than 20 miles an hour are required is allowed. There are other requirements for e-bikes, just like any digital devices that you may have and in your retail stores. Any digital device has to be evaluated to FCC Part 15B for unintended radiation, so that e-bike does not interfere with other digital devices in the surrounding areas. If the e-bike has any wireless technologies, let's say Bluetooth or N+, or any proprietary wireless technologies, that also has to be evaluated by FCC Part 15C or Industry Canada requirements for Canada. These are mandatory requirements. We know that there was an influx of a lot of wireless devices on the market, not necessarily just for e-bikes, e-bike industry, but Bluetooth devices from headphones and earbuds that were not certified by for sale in the United States, and they were taken off the market rather quickly. And the fines by FCC are based on the units sold, so it's very expensive to actually enter the market without those FCC approvals. So those are the requirements that e-bikes have to meet, and it is e-bikes manufacturers' responsibility to meet those federal or state laws, not necessarily the retailers, but it's the manufacturer's responsibility to place safe products and products that comply with all federal and state or local laws. Next slide, please. As a final, we are way ahead of time, which is great because I hope we have a great Q&A session, but UL 2849 certified bikes cannot be declared or issued by an ISO 17025 testing laboratory. Testing does not equal certification. Certification can only be issued by a certifying body accredited to ISO 17065. UL is accredited to evaluate and test to UL 2849 and many, many other standards. So it is in the interest of public safety and UL that all NBDA dealerships should require UL listed e-bikes from your vendors. And we have put here a link to our UL Prospector, UL Product IQ database where you can verify if the product is UL listed. You can create an account, it's free, or you can browse without the account. You can type in just the words e-bikes, or you can type in the QGNS, those are categories for e-bikes, and it will show you all listed e-bikes that are currently on the market in United States or Canada. So if you wanted to verify if the product is indeed UL listed, please do not hesitate to either contact me or Benji. You'll see our contacts details right now, or you can go back to that website. But feel free at any given time, if you have any doubts or any questions about UL 2849 or the products that you are seeing on the market, please do not hesitate to contact either one of us. So with that being said, I hope we have a couple of questions. I can see them in the chat. I know Kunal from Bosch has been answering a lot of them. Thank you, Kunal. And there were some in the Q&A. So Rochelle, do you want to start with that or?
Yeah, definitely. I think I just would like you to comment on, there is a comment that Kunal from Bosch put in the chat that says that all nationally recognized testing labs can certify electrical systems of e-bikes according to the UL 2849. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Yes. There's a list of OSHA's nationally recognized testing laboratories. UL is one of them. So there are a number of testing laboratories that have the UL 2849 in their scope. So that's correct.
Perfect. How much flexibility is given at the OEM level for altering materials? Like if a small component needs to be changed due to supply chain issues, does the entire system need to be recertified, or can the individual component be recertified?
Angie, do you want me to answer this?
It's up to you. You can take it or I can.
Sure. So we try to give the manufacturer as much flexibility to substitute components with the equal or better quality or better value, better rated components as possible, as long as those components are certified. Because we do not control any component in the e-bike that we do not deem, or it's not deemed by the engineering team as hazardous, as a critical component. So anything that's not on that list in the report can be substituted at any given time. And all other materials, for example, let's talk about thermoplastics. We will specify that they can use any thermoplastic material as long as it meets flammability and UV ratings or impact testing, that's impact resistance as previously defined. So yes, we try to give the OEMs as much as possible lenience that they can select components readily and quickly, because we know supply chain issues are ongoing. So yes, John, we can definitely accommodate a lot of this stuff. But if you're changing the battery pack or the motor, that would trigger either engineering review or additional testing.
Great. Have there been any situations where a product has been UL 2849 certified and it's still caught fire or experienced other safety issues?
That question was asked by Barry Lewis. Barry, thank you very much. That's a great question. Not that we know of. Typically, if the fire has started or has involved any UL product, that means from a refrigerator to a stove to a fan to any product, fire investigators immediately notify UL. So as of right now, I'm not aware of any.
All right. There's somebody asking if you can put the link in the chat to where they can check which brands are UL certified. So
let me, before that, Michelangelo Pasquale, I hope, Michelangelo, I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Yes, the question is, being from Canada, it seems that US is taking the lead, and that's great. Should Canadian or other countries manufacturers contact UL USA or in their country? They can contact UL anywhere. If they decide to contact me, I own the micromobility business. I'm the global business development manager. I will put them in contact with individuals in their own country or closest to them that they would like to work with. So they don't have to contact US.
What is the threshold for hazardous voltage according to UL?
It's 60 volts DC or 42.4 volts RMS. So 60 volts DC is the threshold in this particular standard. So it's UL 2849 defines the hazardous voltage level, and another standard may define it in other terms. But in 2849, it's typically, because we're DC systems, it's 60 volts DC or less is non-hazardous. 60 volts DC and higher is hazardous.
Are there any plans to require this certification to sell in the US? What motivation does a manufacturer have otherwise?
Well, New York City had already put in the requirements for the e-bikes sold in New York City to be UL 2849 certified. So we anticipate other cities will follow. There will be no, as of right now, there's no federal mandate. If the fires continue and influx of cheaper products, uncertified products continues as it is, there could be a federal mandate, but right now there isn't one. What motivation do manufacturers have otherwise? It is to show the consumers that their product is safe, just like with any other product, differentiate themselves from the products that are not being certified, differentiates the manufacturer as a manufacturer of quality products that are going to be safe for use. I mean, e-bikes are here to stay. Let's be honest. E-bikes are fantastic. My daughter right now, she just texted me. She completed her race today. She's racing at the Tour of the America Dairyland cycling event. And I'm eager to see how she finished, but e-bikes are everywhere. They're racing them at the Tour de France. They're racing them at Giro d'Italia. They're racing them in the United States. People have discovered the joy of cycling again. It's bringing families together. We do not want these products banned. There is a motion to ban e-bikes, believe it or not, but it's e-bikes manufacturer's responsibility to convince the public that they have a safe product. One of the ways is to have their e-bikes certified, to convince not only the legislators or code authorities, but also the consumers, because consumers are the ones that demand and trust third-party certifications. I hope, Carrie Moncorper, that I answer your question.
What is the time frame for testing?
It really depends on the type of components that are used and if the components used in the actual product have already been evaluated to the correct standard. Typically, what we prefer to do is when a manufacturer comes to UL and says, I would like to get my system evaluated, we try to open a preliminary investigation so that up front we can identify any deficiencies or any sticky points. I'll put it like that. Any things that may need to be addressed before we jump into a full-on evaluation. So we typically try to do preliminary investigations, and they can take 3 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the system.
All right. It seems like there's a question, Benji, about the hazardous voltage that you gave, that 60.
Yep.
It says, is that 60 volts nominal of fully charged?
It's typically, when you're looking at the system, it's any location in the circuit where you measure higher than 60 volts DC nominally. So if it's 61 volts at a specific location, that location and anything associated would be considered a hazardous voltage location.
Do you know, does the New York Fire Department have public records of which types of e-bikes and scooters caused the fires so far?
No, we don't. That's a question for New York City Fire Department. I have not seen if it was a scooter or a traditional pedelec e-bike. Again, as we said, that UL 2849 is intended for bikes with pedals or no pedals. So we don't know which type of e-bike device have caused the fires.
Let's see, are there any issues when a product is made to US standard but transported to, for example, Canada?
No, Benji, could you share back the presentation and bring it back to the cover page of the standard? I believe that's, I don't know the person name. I believe it was Amy that asked that question. If you can just share it, as you can see, the cover page does include Canadian. It's not a CSA, but it is definitely SEC, CCN for Canada. joint Canada, United States national standard. So UL 2849 is a joint Canada and United States national standard, so no issues there. I want you to be assured of that. As you can see, the name of the standard is ANSI/CAN/UL 2849-2022. Okay. We can stop sharing.
Looks like just a few more. Is repair of an e-bike covered as part of the certification of the e-bike?
Great question. Great question. Whoever asked that, thank you very much. No, repairs, unless specifically identified by the manufacturer and specified in the certification report, are not part of it. The moment the bike has been taken apart and modified, at that point, the certification is invalid. That would be equivalent to any product on a market, not just the e-bike. What's most important is that we can't stop tinkers. There are people out there that like to tinker with the products. They like to make them better, under quotes. We can't stop that, you know. But most importantly, for the retailers and the shop owners on this webinar, is that if they're repairing products, to use only parts provided by the OEM, not to substitute parts off the shelf from somebody else. No two chargers are the same. No two battery packs are the same. They're very different in construction design. They're very different in the how they interact with each other, how they interface. So it's very important, only use the OEM parts. And by the way, I want to make a public service announcement that applies for any product that you have, from your mobile device to your notebook computers, particularly when it comes down to lithium-ion batteries. Only go to your OEMs to obtain replacement parts, not on various web retailers. Please, that's a public service announcement from UL. Only use the OEM supplied parts.
Thank you so much. It looks like that's all the questions we have. If people that are watching the recording want to reach out with questions, how can they contact UL?
They can contact UL directly, either to ul.com. There's contact information on our website, or they can, for e-bikes, they can contact me or Benji Cribb. We have the emails in this presentation. Again, I will put them in a chat for everybody to have, but please do not hesitate to contact me. Regardless of where you are in the world, I will put you in contact with somebody as close as possible to your location. So please do that. And I would like, before we go, I would like to mention something. I know Kunal put it in there, but, you know, and thank you, Kunal, for that. One thing that's extremely important: only use chargers that are supplied with the e-bike to charge the e-bikes. So only use those OEM chargers. Do not use aftermarket chargers, please. They're not safe. They're not safe for use. And you know, if you have trouble obtaining the OEM components, you know, please let us know. We'll try to get in contact with the OEM manufacturers and see what we can do and where you can obtain that replacement part.
I do see, actually, there was a question about what fake UL labels are different from real UL labels.
You mean to take that one?
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
In this particular category for UL 2849, and I had a picture of the labels up, and I can pull them back if you think it would benefit to show the labels. In this category, the labels are a holographic style label. So in a lot of cases, in other categories, you can have labels that are printed that has the UL in the circle and all the elements that are required for a UL listing mark. But for UL 2849, whether it's an electrical system intended to be installed by a frame maker, or whether it's an actual in-product e-bike, it will have a holographic label, and I will put that back up. Let me get to it real quick in the presentation first, if I can.
So if you encounter a product, and now again, public service announcement, that you doubt the originality of the UL label, feel free to contact me. We have a counterfeiting division at UL that does exactly that. They go out and search the web ports, for counterfeited products. UL monitors, together with the US Customs, 23 of the largest US ports. There are over 300 ports in the United States. We are at the 23 largest ones, working together with the US Customs to prevent counterfeited products to enter the US market. Again, it's only 23, but those are the 23 largest ports in the United States. If you have any doubts over a product, of authenticity of the UL mark, please, take a picture of it, send it to me. I will send it to our counterfeiting team, and they'll be in contact with you almost immediately.
And just for reference on the screen, this is what the UL listing mark looks like for a 2849 electric e-bike system or an in-product e-bike. And you can see certain elements. You can see the holographic UL logo. You can see the word UL certified. And then it'll say safety US or US/CAN if it's United States and Canada. And then it'll have the identifier as the UL file number for that particular manufacturer is what it will have. So this is what a legitimate UL label looks like. But yes, there are those that are willing to counterfeit a UL label and to try to send in substandard, subpar, non-certified products to the US market.
And just to say something, that file number that you see there that starts with E123456, you can search that file number on that Product IQ database. You can type in that number, and all the certification associated with that file number will be listed. That's a public information. That's not anything proprietary. You can see what that manufacturer has manufactured that is certified to UL. Or you can contact me and Benji, and we'll do that for you.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. This has been really, really educational, informational. We really appreciate you taking the time to share it with our dealers. If anyone has any further questions, please reach out to UL, Dan, or Benji, or email us at info@nbda.com, and we'll make sure to pass it on. And I want to just say thank you one more time. And
you're welcome. It's really an honor to present at NBDA. Anybody that has any questions, I know there's a lot of retailers here that do not just sell e-bikes, but any other products. Again, use us as your resource. We are here to help you, and we'll be honored again to do whatever it takes for you guys to actually sell safe products.
Yep. And Rochelle, just want to again thank you for allowing us the opportunity to get more information out so that there's a better understanding as to what does it actually mean when you have a UL 2849. So we really appreciate the time that you've allowed us to present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We appreciate it. So we will see all of you at our last installment of this series on July 7th. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.